When we think about database security, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Who can access the database in general? What can people access out of the people who have access? Who should have access to what? Today I'm going to explain the broad topic of data security and how it is expressed in Oracle's 12c SQL. The specific chapter I'll be referencing will be Chapter 7 on user creation and management for those who want to look through the book after. The first thing we do when we install Oracle's 12c SQL on our own personal machines is that we give the installer some sort of password. This actually has nothing to do with our Oracle accounts, believe it or not, but what this actually has to do with is the first account that gets created on the SQL database, the system user account. The system user account literally has access to everything. So before you've even created the database, you have created the most important user on the database. You can see how it would be important to make sure no one else should have access to this password if they don't really need it. So after creating the database, what would be the typical thing to do? Well, we need to think about the type of people that are using our database. So let's explore a scenario with a company named Electronic Sonic to help us get a visual of who might need access to what in this database. So let's say we have our manager of Electronic Sonic. His name is Matthew. Matt would be someone important who would be mostly in charge of everything that happens in the store as the manager position. So we should probably want to create a user for Matt to start off with. With Oracle, we'd need to use the create user command as given from the book, where we'd replace username and password with Matt's respective information. We can give him a random password for now. A nice feature is that we can throw in the tag password expire, which means that when Matt logs in, he will have to change his password after the first time. However, we don't want to run to Matt just yet and give him this new password and username for the database, because there's one thing that we would need to do before he can actually even log in. We need to give him permission to create what's called a session. He needs to be able to connect. This is a feature of Oracle 12c, and it might not seem like it, but we've created this user with the expectation of them being able to connect, but we still need to give them permission to connect. I mean, I could see how this would be useful in a scenario where we would have a user table schema that is accessed frequently with the permission to only add or remove data in the tables. But we want to make sure nobody can change anything else about these tables. Making it so the account can't even log in would be a sure way to do that, except if someone has access to the system account. We'll go over more of that in a little bit. Let's take a look at our database hierarchy so far. We have the system count on top and Matt right underneath. If we create a bunch of new users, though, they will all end up right next to Matt in terms of hierarchy, because right now, Matt only has permission to log in, and that's it. So let's give Matt the database admin permissions that he might need to manage Electronic Sonic's database. We can just assign him the database administrative role, just for temporary, by giving him the DBA role. Much like giving someone an individual permission, we can create a database object called a role, which has n number of permissions that anyone who has this role will inherit. So if we give Matt the DBA role, he will have all of the DBA permissions. Let's think of another example. Matt is obviously our manager for Electronic Sonic, but what about regular employees who work at the cash register, or who may work at back controlling inventory? Would they need as much permission to the database as Matt would? No. Why would they need to be able to change any database? They only need to work in the areas that they need to work in. We can group people into the permissions we need respectively on the database based off roles we create for the company. We can see this example we have with Sarah, Marshall, and Pat, all working different jobs that need different types of permissions. We can also create a new role that inherits permissions from these roles, creating a sense of hierarchy for our database of access. We can also add a password to a role by altering the role and adding the identifier being the password. Just like any object we've encountered within the database so far, we can remove these roles and permissions from users by using the revoke to remove an individual permission and the role altogether. We can also remove the role object by just simply dropping it, or by dropping the user altogether. And that's basically it for Chapter 7. It's pretty light, so I hope you guys have enjoyed this video.